Okay, so I matched up this stripe, this stripe, this stripe, this stripe, and this stripe will probably still match up. Then, because of the curve, the stripes up here won't match up anymore, which is fine. You want to just do as much as you can. There's no way to make that happen because fabric is going at an angle. And then here's the relief cut at the front corner, pins down the front of the arm. And you just want to make sure that I still need to put my perpendicular pins here, but you want to try to keep this pinning the same distance across here. These pins should be evenly spaced across, so like 2.5 or 3 inches across all the way up the arm, so you don't get like narrower and wider on this seam. Also remember that if you're a beginner, don't fret about that too much, making this all the same. Just make the slipcover the best you can, and the more you do it, the better you'll get. If you're only planning to ever make one slipcover, and that might be the case after you make one, but I'm just telling you those little things so that you can be aware of it. If it doesn't work out, that's okay. All right, so this is getting weird. It definitely needs some relief cuts here because it's just feeling tight. Like I can't get my fabric to match up because it's too taut. I can go ahead and trim some of this off because I don't need all that. So now I can do this seam here, but I've got to turn this fabric over first. Now what I'm doing here is I'm making sure I have this tucked in pretty well, and then this tucked in pretty well. Not like shoved into there, but tucked as far as I can. And then I pin it a little ways out. Then I put my pins out a little ways. That way when I sew my seam in right here where the pins are, that will allow it to tuck down even further into that, and it'll kind of secure that a little bit into the crook of the arm. Really hard to do from here, not blocking the camera. See, I'm pushing that fabric down into there, and then I'll pin it right out here. This all the way in. Okay, now I've got to do that bit there. Let's see how I can do this. Into this corner. You know what I think I'm going to do? I'm going to take off some of this excess fabric. There's just too much here and it's getting in my way. Sure, I'm not cutting anything underneath there. Is my neighbor getting pressure washing? Oy, oy, oy. My neighbor's having their pool deck pressure washed right now, so I might have to take this up later. Let's see. Maybe I can just edit out the sound and voice over it. We'll see. Okay, so the inside arm, the outside arm, the top track part, the inside back, the inside deck is all pinned. The front of the arm is all pinned. So now I've just got to repeat this process on the other side. Let me give you a close-up of how this looks. So there's my pins all the way up the seat. And once I sew my seam right here, then this part could be even like shoved into the crook of this arm. And there's my pins for the back, and they go all the way up to that corner, and I can take out these pins that are holding this, these temporary pins that were holding that on, and you can see the way these pins are all the way up the arm, and then down the front of the arm. and I can cut off some of that excess fabric. And now I will repeat this process. I'll show you from the outside. This is the front skirt, inside arm, you know, the track of the front of the arm and outside arm here. So with a waterfall skirt, this front panel of the skirt comes all the way across and meets up with the side. And I have found that the easiest way, let me cut this off so you can see better. And I have found that the easiest way to make this connection is at an angle. And you have to, so this is the whole skirt here. You have to put a relief cut here in order for this to come across here. If you don't have a relief cut here, there's no way that this would work. It wouldn't go around. So you have to put a relief cut in order to release that tension there. Okay, and it needs to be a little bit deeper. And even a little bit, let me put a pin so this is pulled out. And even a little bit deeper than that. Okay, there we go. Now, this piece can be folded at an angle like that, and these two pieces will be joined together. Okay, so I can take some of this off, both of these off. And now these two pieces. Okay, so that's that. So that brings the skirt all the way across. And then this here, I'm going to just pin this way. And then this can be folded back and hemmed like that. Okay, let me bring you around this side so you can see the way that this looks. Here's the corner. As you can see, that's the arm of the sofa. And then this is the corner front of the sofa. So this will be a kick pleat just like this one. You can see this is where I'm going to put the seam right there, and this will be sewn straight down here like that to this seam. So what I'll do is I will sew this seam first, and then this seam will go all the way down, and it'll stop about right here, right where this piece comes out. And then I will put another piece of fabric here for the inside of the kick pleat, this piece. And I always do that very last. That's like the last thing I do. After I sew the hem, put that in. So that's how that works. I'll go ahead and put the hem in that. Same thing all the way across, same thing on the other side. So I've got the skirts on, and the actual hem part, I have it pinned up, but I don't have it. I'm gonna cut this off so they're all the same. And what I'll probably do is serge that bottom piece, fold it up, and then I will probably hand stitch the serged edge up, because I don't really want to have any seam on the front of my skirt. That's something that I really don't like. So that's probably what I'll do, but I just pinned it like this so that I would know where it is that I need to hem it. I'll press it, then open it back up, serge the edges, and then hand stitch the serged edges up. So now I will go ahead and trim off the excess everywhere, and then I will go around back and close it up. That's the last thing that needs to be done. So the only thing that you want to remember when you are trimming all of this is to just be very careful. You don't want to cut into anything that any of your piece. I'm going to show you the reason why I keep a pink ribbon on my scissors. Because my scissors ended up in this pile of fabric somehow, all these offcuts, and had I not had that ribbon on there, I would have been looking for these for an awfully long time. Not only does it help me find this, but it also tells my family that these are my sewing scissors. Do not touch them. So, back of the sofa, we're closing it up. The thing about this is this sofa is never going to float in the room. It's always going to be back against this wall. So I do not need to put any kick pleats in here. And this sofa doesn't require a closure. I can just sew this shut. Because the sofa doesn't flare out like that, it's completely square. So I will be able to fit this slipcover back on without having to open it up. Does that make sense? So I don't need to put a zipper or buttons or anything. Again, match up the stripes, put a pin in each stripe going this way, and then I will put perpendicular pins afterwards. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and cut that end of that fabric because it's so heavy. Actually, let me just put a couple pins to stabilize this. Again, it makes it very easy to cut this because I've got a stripe I can follow all the way down. This would be one situation where one of those wrist pin things would be good. I think I'm going to go ahead and close up this side. So this seam and then this one. Maybe I will get one of those wrist pin cushions. Probably make one. I used one years ago and I just didn't really like it. And I don't know why I didn't like it, but maybe I'll try them again. You know, maybe I should put a kick pleat in this back corner. I think I will. I'll leave that open and make that a kick pleat. Alright, finish up all the way across. If you're thinking about doing a slipcover, you will need about 500 pins. So I would go ahead and just order a big pack of pins, and I usually use these round-headed pins, and I do that because it makes pushing them in so much easier on your fingers. I used to always use dressmaker pins like these. I find that when I'm going through 2 layers of upholstery flat fabric plus the welt, which will be 2 layers, so you got 4 layers of fabric, and then you're overlapping it, it's just got so thick that I couldn't push this little pin through that many layers of, I mean I did, but my finger would be so sore by the end of the day that I gave up on that. So I just bought these, which makes it a little bit harder for sewing around them and over them. But it does also require me to kind of take the pins out as I'm using them and just be a little bit more careful, because with the other pins I would just sew right over all of them, and you know, that's dangerous. You could damage your machine that way. So anyway, I'll put a link in the description below for the pins that I use. They're extra long. After I get those last few pins in, I will go ahead and cut that off and put a hem across the bottom, and then I will remove the slip cover off the sofa and make sure I can get this off of here without putting a closure in it, and then time to sew. So it looks like I've got about 4 yards left. I think I bought 24 yards. So it took 20 yards for the sofa and the 6 cushions. All right, let's see if we can get this baby off of here. When you first start sewing on this thing, it feels like, gosh, I'm never going to finish this because it's so much. I mean, it's so big. It's not actually that much. But once you get a couple long strips of pins out, it starts to get a lot easier. And it goes pretty quickly. So here it is. I'm going to take this whole thing in and start sewing. The places where I start sewing, I will carefully move my ball of fabric and pins around, and I'll get to the areas like right here where I have to sew across here, I have to sew here, here. So I'll start there. I'll do this inside shoulder area, and I'll come down here and I'll do this, come down and do this area because we've got to sew this seam, this for 6 areas, like here, here, and here. Once you get those 6 areas sewn, the rest goes like that. You'll have it together in no time flat.